All right, so you see Joseph Fogarty, and he's asked me a comment. What are your thoughts on the difference between 1611 King James, comma, King James Oxford, and King James Cambridge Holy Bibles? Lord of Lord, King of Kings, please click, and it's gone. And he did it twice on my Tuesday Bible study. Hey, how's it going? In the Tuesday Bible study, shows 4 comments. Shows 4 comments, only 1 appears. So showed it in, what is today? Wednesday Bible study. It's not 2 S's. My thoughts are this, and it's a good question. My thoughts are there's enough in the King James as you would also study the New Living Translation, which is what we do, which is a more corrupted text. The King James is corrupted, but through spiritual discernment, you're able to understand the truth. Just like Jesus is the Word. Well, if the King James is the Word and Jesus is the Word, well, Jesus spoke in parables. And they said, why do you speak to them in parables, Lord, the disciples? And he said, for you it is meant to know the mysteries of the kingdom, for them it is not. So the Lord made sure the Bible was written a little off, not spelled out for the world to see. Just like it, and it's you know, it's why it's called the mystery of faith. And the mysteries of the kingdom, like Jesus said to them, it's a mystery. You can't solve that mystery of truth. Jesus is the truth. You can't solve that mystery of Jesus unless you're his. He has to give it to you. And that's what 1 Corinthians 2:14 says. You go to 1 Corinthians 2:14. Let's just Google it. I think I can do it. I think I'm lazier. 1 Corinthians 2:14, King James Version, Bible Gateway. And it's going to speak about the natural man cannot pick up on. Now that we're logged in, let's see what it gives us. The natural man receiveth not. It's also in blue, neither can he know them. Okay. So for the natural man, it would be foolish to him. The truth would be. That's why it's a broad way. You have the broad way and you got the narrow way. So the natural man, who are born goats or lost sheep, you can couple lost sheep and born goats into the same category. A found sheep is one that has received the call, the baptism by the Holy Spirit and fire. And the fire is the subsequent fiery trials of the Lord pulling you out of the world. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. You have to learn the truth in the Spirit. There's enough in the King James, long story short, there's enough in the King James, coupled with reading the New Living, which is very watered down and a more corrupted, but sometimes the King James can get so difficult that you're like, what, and if you've watched me for the last year and a half or however long I've been doing this, How long have I been doing this? If you've been watching me for that amount of time, then you would say, like, as he reads through the King James, he could understand it without the New Living, but when he does go to the New Living, let's go to the playlist. I think it's going to give us a Luke gospel. So Luke was the first. Luke and Revelation. So I began all of this. How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to start Luke. So we're about to enter 2022. We're heading there. And this was September 21st, 2020. So as we're about to enter November, well, really a year and a month and 6 days. 1 year, 1 month, 6 days is how long I've been doing these Bible studies. So if you would have been there from the beginning, which I don't think anybody watching now has been, people come, people go. Some, though, once you come, you stay. And that's great. It's a calling, right? You'll watch me read through in the New Living, but sometimes I'll just go through in the King James and I can understand it, but then I'll go through to the New Living. I'll describe it in the King James and then I'll go to the New Living and read what it just described. So New Living is what I was raised on when the Lord first called me out of Catholicism and astrology and moved me towards Christianity. Actually, when I was the astrologer, I was still reading the New Living. I was writing a book, melding astrology with Christianity. It's kind of a new age Christian thesis, meshing the two, and the Lord just caught me out of it. He showed me where I got my astrology from. I got it from Roman Catholicism. It's where I first saw my first zodiac wheel, was at the Catholic school that I went to, was raised in for 8 years, 1st through 8th grade. So King James is good enough for me. We can get just about anything we want here online. I like the King James because it separates verse for verse. It puts a gap. And the King James is from Textus Receptus, which is the received text, written by Erasmus, who was a humanist and believed in free will and believed in man over the spirit. That's humanism. In other words, we believe in humans more than gods. That's humanist. The humanist religion or the humanist philosophy. And that's who put together what was used to write the King James, the received text, Textus Receptus, Textus Receptus, Textus, Textus Receptus, written by Erasmus, a Catholic humanist. And Erasmus chose the 5th definition of cosmos in John 3:16, the whole world, when in fact what God so loved was the first definition, this harmonious arrangement. So the King James is improperly written, but we're able to discern the truth through using the rest of the word. The Lord has allowed us to connect the dots. Back in the olden days, I would have no internet, just books and books, and I would be writing and writing my own books, and that would be what I do. Other than whatever I needed to do to put food on the table and to provide a roof over my head, That's what I would have done. I wouldn't have been watching Netflix or DVDs or Blu-rays, because we'd have been in the olden times. And that's what I would have done. I would have just sat and I'd have probably rewritten my own Bible. Would have called it the Trey Stokes version instead of King James, who was a person. I'd write my Bible in truth. And John 3:16 would be written, for God so loved his harmonious arrangement, which is the first definition of his sheep, which he knew before the foundation of the world, that he sent his only begotten son. Boom. I mean, and then finish off the rest. You have to use the original Greek, which we use blueletterbible.com here a lot. I hope that answered your question. And let's get on with today's study. Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man, not willing to make her a public example, the fact that she was pregnant, was minded to put her away privily. For while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not, take thee Mary as thy wife. That which is conceived is of the Holy Ghost. And he shall bring forth a son, and she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Who are his people? Who are his people? We're in Matthew right now, are we not? Okay, I was wondering why this one was up here. That's because that's where his question was. Did I answer it? Going over it in study. All right. Jesus said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Jesus shall save his people. Jesus shall save his people. Who are his people? Well, Jesus said, I am not sent but. So who are his people? It's after the but. After the but unto. The lost sheep of the house of Israel. You're like, well, I'm not Israeli. No, that's talking about the church. And you find that in the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 38. The church that was on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 commandments, known as the lively oracles. They called it the church because the church is Israel and Israel is the church. And non-Israeli bloodline lineage people who belong to Christ, who were born lost sheep, all sheep are born lost. Jesus came for them, the lost sheep. They're known as grafted in Jews. And that's my Romans 11 study on my playlist. If you can't find it, just ask for it. I'll give you the link. That's what Romans 11 is about. The bloodline, the remnant, and how the non-bloodline are grafted in. Grafted in Jews, real Jews, spiritual Jews. Sheep are spiritual Jews. We have the spiritual enlightenment to be of Israel through the calling. Now, all of this was done, and it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophets, saying, notice how that verse ends in a comma. Many of them do. Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Many people will tell you that Jesus is not God. But it's spoken of in Matthew 1 and in John 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Add 13 more verses, and it says, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, or among them. So this took to the 23rd chapter to tell you Jesus is God. In John, it's the very, the 23rd verse in the first chapter. In John, it's the first verse in the first chapter and the 14th. Then Joseph, being raised from his sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took unto him his wife. Did Joseph do that with his own free will decision? In other words, all of God's plans would have gone awry, or Joseph was the 7th or the 10th one or the 12th one or the 13th one or the 3rd one or the 5th one that God attempted this with, but all the others made poor free will decision judgments. No, God put it in his heart, because God ordained every bit of this from before the foundation of the world. That's what the Bible says. Isaiah 46:10, for he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world. I woke up feeling the cheesiest coach. I woke up with that commercial in my head. I guess because the word woke up's in there. And then he did not have sexual relations with her until Jesus was born. And he called his name Jesus, as instructed. Then when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there come wise men from the east to Jerusalem, comma. Let's go to Daniel. And Daniel said to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat, or beans, or not the king's meat, which had defiled, which went against the Torah laws, the Abrahamic covenant of Moses. So that food, we just want that food, good, clean food that falls within our laws, and water to drink. Then you can check out our faces and see how we look, and compare it to those that eat the king's training table meal list. And as you see it, then you can make your decision. So the eunuch agreed and waited out the 10 days to check them out. At the end of the 10 days, they looked fine. They looked better, fatter in the flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Notice I'm paraphrasing a lot of this for you. If I did write my own Bible, though, I would go word for word with what is written in the Greek. You cannot get rid of any words that were written in the Greek. You just can't. And I would probably have a page that went word for word with what was written in the Greek, choosing the proper definitions for things like cosmos. And then the next page to it, I would paraphrase it. I would describe everything that is written there and make it fit on that one page. That's how my Bible would read. And so that's what we do here. We rewrite the Bible word for word every day. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their food and the wine that they were drinking, and gave them the pulse, which translates to beans. For these 4 children, gave them knowledge and skill. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. Now, all learning and wisdom. Remember, Daniel was in charge of the Chaldeans and astrologers. And I know the Lord put me through a very, very, very heavy training in astrology, which is basic Satanism, Luciferianism. And Daniel was also given the end times prophecies, and the Lord has me knee deep doing end time studies, which is what book of Daniel, which is why I go back and forth between Daniel and Revelation. And though we aren't to practice astrology, for some reason, we are to understand it. Like gematria. We don't practice gematria for our own usage or for seeing the future for our own personal lives. But that Bible verse that says, be ye as wise as serpents, yet harmless as doves, we have to be able to outwit, outsmart, outplay until we're eventually jailed, murdered, framed, until they remove us. But while we're here, we're to expose. And to try to understand, and really and truly, it's because, it's the flock. You got the sheep. Jesus told him, feed the sheep. I believe it was Peter. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. I love feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Yeah, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. I love you. Feed my lambs. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Why do you keep asking me that? It's breaking my heart, Lord. Yes, I'll feed my sheep. So there's a job to do. As those sheep that are eating meat are to nourish those that are still in the drinking milk stage. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge. God gave them. God gave them. God gave them. You have to know that. You don't get any wisdom unless it comes from the Lord. Knowledge and skill and all learning and wisdom. That also means wisdom of the world. Again, Daniel was in charge of the astrologers and the Chaldeans after a while, as this book goes on. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. He had them because why? God gave it to him. Now, at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. So they were brought in before King Nebuchadnezzar, who removed them from Israel. because God ordained it so. Isaiah 46:10, declaring the end from the beginning. In other words, declaring the book of Revelation from the book of Genesis. From ancient times to the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, I will do my pleasure. Everything you read was declared from before the foundation of the world. Jesus was from before the foundation of the world. God's sheep were from before the foundation of the world. Why was Jesus known to be needed then? If he's the new covenant, how did God already know from before anything was created, like the earth and the mountains and the sun and the stars, before anything was created? Why did he already knew that he needed to create himself in a fleshly form, in a human form? And when we are made in his image, we are made in the image of Jesus, not in the image of God. God is vast. So man was made in God's image, Bible verse. So God created man in his own image. In the image, God created him. In the image of God, he created them. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, in the beginning. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And man was created in that image. Own was added. In his image is what was there. So being that it was simply Elohim, obviously that falls into God, Jesus, which is lumped into all sorts of categories, split for a reason, to confuse man, which it has properly done. Separating the sheep and the goats from their ability to discern and properly believe. You understand things in your heart. You understand things through a spiritual nature. The natural man is not called to it. Love y'all. Ask questions. Love questions, as you can see.